Welcome back into the attorneys talking about trucking, the trucking industry, and how safe those big rigs really are on the roadway. It would be better if you were to join the conversation, and you can do that by calling, texting, or emailing us. Again, attorneys are standing by to speak with you and to get your question to our panel of experts. Carter?
Sure. Rachel, as you know from practicing law, there are statute of limitations that apply to any type of civil claim that an individual might want to file. And of course, automobile accident and trucking accidents are no different. Talk to us a minute about the statute of limitations that would apply to a truck accident involving a truck. Is it the same as to passenger automobiles getting involved in an accident? And just talk a little bit about that.
Carter, it is, and most people don't realize that you only have 2 years from the date of the wreck to file a lawsuit, or no matter how catastrophic your injuries or a death or anything, your claim is forever time barred, and the general public doesn't realize there's a time limit on when you can file your lawsuit, and that you cannot recover once that 2 years has passed.
Right, and that's in Alabama, the 2-year statute of limitations. Interestingly, as I mentioned before we went to break, federal law regulates and kind of governs these truck drivers, what they can and can't do and what they have to do to become qualified to be a truck driver. But when it comes to being in an accident, that really triggers state law, and it triggers state law relative to statute of limitations. So if an individual from Birmingham drives up to Tennessee and gets in an automobile accident with a truck driver in Tennessee, Tennessee statute of limitations would likely apply in that particular situation, and Tennessee has a 1-year statute of limitations. I've got a situation right now where unfortunately the statute of limitations has expired under Tennessee law. An individual was injured pretty badly in an automobile accident, and it took him several months to recover. Right. And by the time he recovered, needed to get back to work and get his life back in order, and lo and behold, a year's gone by. He didn't realize that the statute of limitations was 1 year in Tennessee, and there's really nothing that he can do. Like Rachel said, he's time barred from pursuing his claim. So you really have to be aware of the statute of limitations if you're involved in an accident.
Again, you can join the conversation, call, text, email us. A question we have here is about the trucking company and their responsibility with the driver. Is the trucking company responsible for the action of its drivers? Always responsible for the actions of its drivers?
Well, the answer is typically yes, if they are an employee of the trucking company, or if that trucking company has control over that truck. There's a lot of times, and I've seen cases where a trucking company will fraudulently misrepresent whether or not that driver was their employee. They'll claim that driver was an independent contractor and try to escape liability on those cases. And it's an unfortunate situation, but there's laws that state, there's a legal theory, it's called respondeat superior. It's a big legal word, but I mean, it basically means that that trucking company is responsible for the actions of their employee.
And really, it doesn't matter how you characterize the individual, whether you characterize him as an employee or an independent contractor. The law is going to be to look beyond the title that is given to that individual. And really what they're going to look at is, did the employer control the method and means and manner by which the individual conducted his work? And if the employer did, he's going to be an employee of that employer. And if he did not, then the person is likely going to be characterized as an independent contractor. And if they're an independent contractor, then the employer or that particular company would not necessarily be responsible for their conduct.
Another question we have here, how are truckers treated differently than other drivers on the road, which to me begs the first question, are they? Are truckers treated different, and is there a different standard for a truck driver versus me and you with our vehicle?
Well, that's a complicated question. They're treated differently in terms of the qualifications and the steps that they have to go through to become a truck driver. Right. Once they are on the road, they're pretty much subject to the same rules and regulations or rules of the road as anybody else in terms of keeping a proper distance from the vehicle in front of them, although the distance would be greater because they're driving a bigger rig, stopping at stoplights, stopping at stop signs, keeping a proper lookout, and those types of things. They're still held to what we call the negligence standard, right, which you and I would be held to if we were driving our automobiles, and you may want to expand on that as well.
Well, truck drivers are supposed, or commercial drivers are supposed to do a daily inspection of their truck. Supposed to being the key question, the key term. They are subject to random drug screening. They're supposed to undergo a pre-employment drug screening, post-accident drug screening. Like I said earlier, they're subject to annual physicals if they're complying with the federal regulations. They are, like I said, there's a limit on the time they can drive. There's a limit on the weight of their vehicle. And really and truly it makes sense because trucks are heavier, clearly heavier, the most massive vehicles on the road. They take longer to stop. They have large blind spots that the general public does not realize. I see all the time people traveling in what I know is the blind spot from all the depositions I've taken of truck drivers. And it's just a scary thing for the general public that just does not realize how dangerous those trucks are.
Another question we have here. If a trucker is driving past his hours allowed, how does that impact the case?
Well, I mean, that's negligence, obviously. I mean, they're breaking the law in that instance. And they're supposed to drive 11 hours a day max, according to the federal regulations. After 8 hours, they're supposed to take a rest break, coffee break, nap, whatever it is. So they're violating the law just right there if they're driving past their daily limit.
Yeah, and what you would want to do is you would want to take that violation and couple it with the evidence in your case. Let's say, for instance, you had a truck driver that you thought was being inattentive or was maybe dozing off while he was driving the automobile. Certainly those restrictions and limits on the hours that they can drive are there because they know that ultimately if you drive 20 or 24 straight hours, you're going to get tired, you're going to have sleep deprivation, those types of things. So you would use that violation to sort of establish the negligent aspect or conduct that the truck driver engaged in. And just to be clear, David, we talk on these shows, we're not here to bash truck drivers. There are a lot of truck drivers out there that are very conscientious, hardworking, responsible individuals that are doing it the right way. But just like individuals that are out there driving cars like you and I do, people make mistakes, people push the envelope, people become irresponsible in some way, shape, or form, and truck drivers are no different.
Right. All right, time for our second break. We're just buzzing right on through this conversation about truckers, but time for you to get your questions to us. Call, text, email. We would love to have you join the conversation. Again, an attorney is standing by for you to speak with. The final segment of The Attorney is coming right up.
I'm Josh Firth with the law firm of Hollis Wright. Most of us have either been involved in or we know someone who's been involved in an automobile accident. Sometimes the police will issue a ticket if one party is at fault. But what about those times when a ticket is not given? In tonight's Legal 411, we're answering the question, who is responsible when no ticket is issued? Just because there is no ticket does not mean there is no liability, especially if someone is injured in the crash. First, it's important to understand the law. Did you know that unless an officer personally sees the crash, he can't write a ticket even if he is certain the other person is at fault? There are two exceptions to this rule. One, if someone is driving under the influence, and two, if someone doesn't have proof of insurance for their vehicle. Even if a ticket is issued, that is not a guarantee of liability or that the injured party will win the case in front of a jury. However, a jury may find a person liable for negligence if the person at fault was driving improperly or violated one of these 6 rules of the road. For example, driving without proper taillights, texting or talking on the phone, improper lights or signals on a trailer, failure to yield to oncoming traffic, hitting another car from behind, or changing lanes improperly or without signaling. Any of these can serve as a basis for a jury to find someone negligent for causing an accident and injuring another person or their property. So the person who caused the accident is ultimately responsible for the injuries even if the police officer does not assign fault. But you have to prove liability. That's why it's so important to ask for legal guidance if you are ever injured in a crash. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer the questions you face on real issues every day. And remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thank you for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13.